What's up, guys? It's Brandon Flash. Today you're joining me with a 2024 Tesla Model Y rear-wheel drive. This is the cheapest brand new Tesla you can buy, just about $35,000 when you factor in the federal tax credit, which is now a point-of-sale credit. And we're going to be driving at a constant 70 miles per hour in a loop-style test to see how far this Model Y will go. Thanks to Gary for letting me use this 2024 Tesla Model Y rear-wheel drive. This one is in deep blue metallic. We're charging up to 100% on a Tesla Supercharger version 3. That way the battery is nice and toasty. We're not going to be navigating back to the supercharger for the test, so that way it doesn't precondition and waste any energy on that, so we can truly get as far as possible. This particular one has the 19-inch wheels with the aero caps installed, the Gemini wheels. No window tint, but that's fine. Let's see if phone key wants to work. So here we are inside the car. This one has the black interior. And we are at 79% right now, charging up to 100%. I do have a full charge curve video coming as well if that has not been published already. Here you can see this just shows Model Y, and if you've watched the channel before, you'll know that's exactly the same as my Model Y all-wheel drive shows as well. But here you can see motor type rear permanent magnet. So that's indicating that this is in fact a rear-wheel drive car, not a front-wheel drive car, because otherwise it would show front motor type as well. We also have CAN data, so that will help us run it all the way down to 0% because we can see the true state of charge. So there we have the true state of charge is 69%. However, it's displaying 80% because this is a software locked battery. So this is the long range battery pack, almost 80 kilowatt hour, but you're only able to use 85% of it in this rear wheel drive configuration. It's a weird car, but I'm very interested to see how far it goes in this range test. And I did set tire pressures this morning to factory specification of 42 PSI when cold. We're going to be running at a constant 70 miles per hour in a loop style test. That way it kind of counteracts any wind or elevation. We're going to be running climate on 68 auto just to be comfortable. The range is 68 to 72. And we're not going to be preconditioning on the way back. We have just completed at a 100% charge. Let's see the rated range there, 259 miles, which is exactly what this is rated for from the factory. So we have no degradation, at least shown via rated range, which is not the best indicator, but on a car with about 2,000 miles is good enough. We're going to unplug, we're going to hit the road. I just have nav set just for sake of setting nav, but again, I'm not navigating to the supercharger because that would precondition the battery, and we do not want to do that because that will use energy. So we're gonna be going south on 77, and then looping back up, and then we'll continue past our starting point if needed, which we likely will because we're only going to be at 40% or 41% as we cross back. So we'll go up and then probably do it again. So this is a north-south route, and we'll be holding a constant 70 miles per hour. Let's get on the road. Going to reset this trip just once more, just to be sure. Reset 70 miles per hour. And we have the odometer noted as well, 1915, just so we have it. And let's get to it. And as you can see, this is pretty close to the interstate supercharger, so not a whole lot of driving at low speed before we get onto the interstate. Just a little bit of this complex, and we're on it. And we're at 100% displayed on the vehicle, 84.9, that was 85% displayed on the CAN data. And the battery is nice and toasty, almost 60C. That will obviously cool down as we're driving, and I'll give you guys some updates at different percentages along the way. And we're going to be accelerating gently up to 71 miles per hour indicated, which is 70 miles per hour GPS. We're locked in, cruising along. I'm going to maintain that we don't have any traffic ahead of us, and then go from there. We are locked in at 71 miles per hour. We're going to be keeping ahead of us clear as much as possible, so that way we don't get any drafting effect, and just keep it as constant 71 mile per hour. I have turned off full self-driving and just turned on base autopilot. That way I have a little bit more control over the lane changes and such to keep in front of us clear and just be a little bit more strategic rather than full self-driving just doing its own thing. We are at 75%, so we've used a quarter of the battery. We've gone 58 miles at 273 watt hour per mile. We're almost to the first turnaround point, so we're on track for somewhere in the 230 to 240 mile for the full charge range, which is pretty much right on track with my 2023 Tesla Model Y all-wheel drive with the 4680 pack. So really going to be interesting to see how this all shakes out, and I'll update you guys again at 50%. We're turning around after 67 miles driven. We're at 72% state of charge. We're just going to come up here. We'll then take a left, take another left, get right back on, and then continue at 71 mile per hour indicated again, and just keep on trucking along and putting on the miles. We have just crossed 50% from 51. We're at 120 miles driven, so we're on track for about 240 miles, and things are going really well. We're just about to our second turnaround point to head back south again. But so far, really impressed with this car and really curious to see how this ends up turning out. We actually went a little bit further in this quartile of the battery than in the first. So the first we went 58, 57 miles. You'll know better than I do. And this one we went a little over 60. So just really doing well. We have 44.7% as the actual state of charge, and we have about 35.5 kilowatt hour remaining. So just going to go another like 9 miles or so till the turnaround point, and then we'll continue on and keep at it, and hopefully maybe we even get to 250 miles. That sounds optimistic, but you never know. We're at 46% headed south again. We were turning around at 47%, driven 131 miles, and it looks like we've got about 50 miles or so to the next turnaround point, and then looks like that's putting us on track to return back with 1%. I'll have to take a look at the exits. Maybe we'll push it one more exit south. Not entirely sure. We'll see how the estimates are looking as we get farther along. We just crossed over to 25%. We've done 181 miles. Just crossed to 182 miles. So we've done just about the same distance as the second quarter from the 75 to 50% quarter, but longer than the 100% to 75% quarter. So on track for over 240 miles. We'll see if maybe we even hit 250 miles. But right now we have 65 miles to go back. We're turning around in 1.8 miles. I've just been pushing it further. And I actually moved our return charger to a charger that's a little bit closer to Charlotte. So actually further than our starting point. So we're really just piling on the miles here. Really impressed so far. 260 watt hour per mile. So nothing to complain about there either. We're turning around at 23%. Ended up going another exit, so looks like 62 miles back to the original starting point. So I changed it a little bit, and if we need to push it a little bit further, if we have more range than expected, we can go to the supercharger that's like 1 or 2 exits past. So we'll play it by ear a little bit, but we've gone 187 miles so far, and it's saying we can go another 62 miles and still arrive with 1%. So I am super impressed so far with this car. And we'll see what the final result ends up being, but it's looking like we might even cross 250 miles, which for a 259 mile rated range is super impressive. We're down to 10% state of charge, so this is kind of around where a normal person would maybe want to charge, and we've driven 220 miles from 100%, so that's really solid. We've switched back to the starting point supercharger as our destination. But if we can go further, we certainly will. But that's projecting an arrival of 0% with another 29 miles. So that's putting us right about 250 miles. So we'll see what happens. We are down to 5% state of charge. We've driven 233 miles. So that's kind of where a more daring person would maybe drive it down to, or a more daring normal person, I should say. Still have 16 miles to go. It's saying we have 13 miles of rated range remaining. So not the greatest there. 6.9 kilowatt hour remaining, and it's projecting arrival of negative 1%. So that should be interesting, but I think we'll be fine. We just crossed from 1% to 0%, going 245 miles. Still negative 1% arrival to the supercharger, but I think we'll be just fine. We still have 4.9% actual capacity and 3.7 kilowatt hour remaining to go 4.5 miles. So I think we'll be totally fine. But we are going to use up some of that buffer and see how far we can go. Looks like we'll get to just about 250 miles. Might have to do some parking lot laps to get it to 250 on one charge. So even at 0%, we still have quite a bit of power, not really getting a whole lot of power reduction. You can see the dots there. And you can see that we've used over 100% of the battery there. So it was at 99.9 for a little bit, but we have gone over 100%. I'm surprised it actually lets you do that. And just exiting here, we're at, again, 0%. We've driven 249 miles, and this is the time we're coming off of 70 miles per hour. We're going to the supercharger now. I did not, again, navigate to the supercharger, just put it in as a destination separately from the actual supercharger point of interest. We've gone 101.2% energy consumption, and we still have a fair amount of power there on the power bars. And once we come to a stop, there we go. So we're still at 282 volts, 3.6 actual percentage, and 2.9 kilowatt hour remaining. So we are using some of that battery buffer. And just like that, we have arrived to the supercharger. We've driven 250 miles in 3 hours, 47 minutes. There's quite a bit of traffic coming off the interstate there, so that time is probably a bit skewed as a result. Here's some stats. We actually used 101.4% of the battery, which I'm surprised it lets that happen. There you can see some of the different factors. And that's that. So let me get plugged in, charge up a little bit, and then we'll talk about it. So there we are, plugged in. This is a high utilization supercharger, so it's set the charge limit to 80%, set to 100. But you can see it ramps right up even without preconditioning, 160 kilowatts. They claim 170 kilowatts, but it seems to max out at about 161, 162, so that's a little bit weird. And the battery was actually relatively warm, even though it didn't precondition, so also a bit interesting. I wonder if it was just letting it heat up because it wanted to save energy, not entirely sure. But in conclusion, we drove 250 miles. We got 96.5% of rated combined efficiency. So EPA doesn't give a highway range rating anymore. They just give a combined rating, which is city and highway. And we achieved 96.5% of that in interstate driving at 70 miles per hour. So that's actually really impressive. On par with non-Teslas, actually. And it shows that the new EPA calculation formula is actually a lot more realistic with what people can expect. I think if you did mixed driving, or you weren't trying to hold as steady of a speed and you were maybe going a little bit slower here and there, you could easily do that 250 miles or even that 259 miles that the vehicle is rated. So overall, really impressive result. Beat out my Model Y all-wheel drive with the 4680 pack by about 23 miles. So also pretty impressive considering they're basically the same capacity. So this is more efficient being a rear-wheel drive. Not all that surprising. But would love to hear what you guys think. Comment down below. If you haven't already, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. See you guys on the next one.